Hey, what up? We are now live. So I'm David Dole for the Rational National, and I'm here joined by Mary, who's in the background. She may be reading some comments. She'll be in the chat now and then as well. So I'm gonna take a ton of questions because there were a lot of Patreon questions. I'm also gonna take super chats and maybe the occasional random question on YouTube. And I also have three stories that I kind of want to go over, and they are I'm going to talk a bit about the Joy Reid thing, talk a bit about Kathleen Wynne for those in Canada / Ontario, and also show a couple campaign ads from a couple different amazing progressives that are running in for different seats in the U.S. So let's start off with Joy Reid. Now, I didn't cover this story during the week because honestly, I don't think it's that big of a deal. But let me go through it with you and show you what actually went on here. So, as BuzzFeed News reported, Joy Reid promoted an infamous 9/11 conspiracy documentary on her old blog. The MSNBC host, who has recently come under fire for claiming her blog was hacked, encouraged her readers to watch Loose Change. MSNBC host Joy Reid encouraged readers of her now defunct blog to watch an infamous 9/11 conspiracy documentary, according to recently discovered posts shared with BuzzFeed News. A March 22nd, 2006 post to her weblog, Reid Blog, archived by the Wayback Machine and titled The Official Story, links to Loose Change 9/11, a viral 80-minute web video originally released in 2005. Loose Change, which was produced in part by InfoWars' Alex Jones, alleged that terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center were in fact planned by the U.S. government. The central claim and Loose Change have been widely debunked. The fundamental question is, do you believe the official story of 9/11, the post reads? If you do, great. If you don't, then everything that happened after that is called into serious question. Even if you're agnostic or you tend to believe that Al-Qaeda attacked the World Trade Center and Pentagon and that the government had no warning such a thing could happen, it's worth taking a second look. Okay. So why don't I care about this? I don't care about this because it was it was back in 2006. This is where I draw the line. If you have changed, if you've grown, if you've learned things, why do I care about what you talked about over 10 years ago? Now, you could say that it shows maybe, I don't know, a fault in Joy Reid's character or the way she thinks, but if I'm going to criticize Joy Reid, I'm going to do it on what she's talking about now and why you shouldn't pay attention to her now, not why you shouldn't have paid attention to her in 2006. I don't really care. So, I mean, the other side of this is, what if somebody that I enjoy, that I follow, had an old blog post where they said some dumb shit back 10 years ago? Should I care about that? I wouldn't. So let's say Bernie Sanders was an active blogger in 2006, and he raised questions about 9/11. Would you? So if you care about this story about Joy Reid doing this, would you care about Bernie Sanders having talked about this? Now, I mean, the fact that he was in government, I guess, is a whole different thing. But when it comes to what's happening now, if you've learned, if you've changed, who cares? So yes, this is embarrassing, I would say, for especially, I mean, Joy Reid in 2006, she was an adult. I think she must have been well into her 30s. But whatever. People change, people learn, and Mary has something to say, so hold up. All right, I think they should hear you.
But don't you think there's something, like there's certain lines we should draw on the left? I think if someone is promoting Alex Jones conspiracy theorists, I think there's something clearly wrong with you as a journalist, with your credibility as someone that should be telling the news. Sure, you can be in the media. Sure, you can be, talking about, stories that interest you. But I think in terms of telling the news, telling facts, I think there should be a little bit more vetting that should be done in terms of finding credible journalists
Yeah,
to
I
talk
mean,
about.
if you had two journalists who were the same and one wrote these blog posts and one didn't, I could see you, going with the one who didn't. But still, this is over 10 years ago. And I mean, if Bernie Sanders had written this,
He would never. He would
I know
never.
That's a bad example because Bernie Sanders is way too intelligent to have ever gone down this hole. But I don't know. Think of another news person we enjoy. Let's just imagine some some theoretical persons. I don't know, Cenk Uygur or something. So imagine he wrote about loose change 9/11 in 2006.
I think it would.
Would that like discredit him today,
It
though?
wouldn't discredit him today, but I think there would be sort of a stain on his, progressive fact, journalistic integrity. That's what I think. And I think Joy Reid has done a number of things to show that she's, lost a lot of credibility, if any,
Yeah.
that she's had. But I think this is just clearly a part of a pattern that we see. She's not someone that has integrity, and I think when it comes to journalism and when you're talking about facts in the news, you have to be completely, I would say you want to be as flawless as possible. Not everyone needs to be in every industry. I would say if you're running in politics,
Yeah.
or if you're, in the entertainment industry, that's a different story. But if you're supposed to tell facts, and this is supposed to be someone that people look up to in terms of, their judgment and what stories they're going to take, I think I have a little bit of a problem with it. Not as much as a problem as maybe other people, but I don't know. I think Alex Jones is it's one thing when you're like, oh, okay, I agree with this post by, David Frum. But Alex Jones is complete conspiracy theory.
I think I get what you're saying. I just think because she wasn't doing the news back then. She was essentially a civilian writing this blog post.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
it shouldn't be held to her career today because she wasn't in her career yet. So, I mean, that said, you can go back. I'm not a fan of Joy Reid. So I just think there are better reasons to criticize her
I agree with
than this story. But that's it on this. Let's go to the next story I want to cover here, which is on Kathleen Wynne in Ontario. So right now in Ontario, there is an election race happening between the Kathleen Wynne's Liberals, Doug Ford's PCs, and Andrea Horwath's NDP. Now, the way the race currently stands, it appears that it's either going to be a PC majority or minority, or an NDP majority or minority. So either NDP or PC will be able to form government. More likely right now, though, Doug Ford's PCs. And if you've watched any of my videos on Doug Ford, it's absolutely ridiculous that we're going to possibly have him as our next premier. He's Canadian Donald Trump in many ways. And I would say even worse in the sense that he is so connected politically to the establishment, even though he acts like he is not, that he's even more detrimental than Trump is in some ways. So Trump obviously has more power as the president of the United States, but as a premier, as the leader of the PCs, the possible premier of Ontario, it's just so disturbing that this idiot might be our next premier. But knowing that the Liberals are way in last, even though they currently hold government, Kathleen Wynne has finally come out and sort of conceded before the election. So she put out this. Let me get the shot up here. So Wynne acknowledges election is lost, urges voters to ensure NDP or PC minority. Kathleen Wynne on Saturday acknowledged that she will no longer be premier after the June 7th election and encouraged voters to elect Liberal candidates to prevent NDP or PCs from securing a majority. Quote, even though I won't be leading this province as premier, I care deeply about how it will be led, the Liberal leader said during a campaign stop in Toronto. People want change, but by and large, they are confident about where Ontario stands and where Ontario is headed. For this reason, I heard this over and over again. Many voters are worried about handing a blank check to either Doug Ford or the NDP, she continued. She added that voters don't trust a progressive conservative leader, Doug Ford, and are concerned about what an NDP government will look like. The more Liberal MPPs we send to Queen's Park on June 7th, the less likely it becomes that either Doug Ford or the NDP will be able to form a majority government, the emotional Wynne said. Okay. I got some problems with her right now. So coming into this election, because of the riding I'm in, I had full intention of voting Liberal. And that was because simply the NDP appeared to have no shot in my riding. But over the last couple weeks, I completely changed my mind, and I voted early for the NDP, and I'll tell you why. Kathleen Wynne has been actively, in the past week, working against the NDP and against unions, against labor. Now, this is a Liberal Party for the most part, hasn't been too conservative. I would say that they are, for you Americans out there, I would say that they are more left, at least in Ontario. The Liberals are more left than the Democrats are in the US. But her coming out here and attacking the NDP's ties with labor and attacking unions, it shows that the Liberal Party is willing to always move to the right. They're always trying to get right-wing voters, even though they campaign to the left. This is what the Liberal Party in both Ontario and nationally does. They campaign left, campaign progressive, and then once they win, once they gain power, they govern to the right. It happens every time. And I'm tired of this shit. And I'm happy now that Kathleen Wynne is going to lose. Now, I'm not happy that she's going to lose to Doug Ford, but I don't know. I hope this is somewhat of a wake-up call for her, even though I feel like she's not going to think she lost because of lack of left-wing support, unfortunately. Even though I'd say the driving factor for her loss here is the fact that she privatized Hydro One. So she privatized energy as a Liberal. This is a conservative move. Something that Doug Ford would have done. Something that Doug Ford would have done even more so. So I believe only 60% of Hydro One has been privatized. Doug Ford wants to privatize everything. And when you privatize shit, guess what? The costs go up. So after when privatized Hydro, costs shot up. And the CEO of Hydro One, the executive branch, they're all making tons more money. And it's because it was privatized.
But he's for the little guy.
Your mic's off. Go again.
He's for the little guy.
Yeah, Doug Ford's
for the argument people make. He's the guy that is for the working class, and that's what people say, despite him being the dictionary definition of an elite.
Yeah, he's just a complete phony. Like, I wish I could pull up clips here of Doug Ford. The reason I don't have any Canadian clips set up is every time I put a Canadian clip in one of my videos, it gets copyright infringement, and they claim the monetization on my videos. So I can't use Canadian clips for whatever reason. And when I do them, I'll do them in separate videos so it doesn't screw my entire live stream up. But just go back and watch my Doug Ford videos after this live stream. The guy's a moron, and I'm amazed actually that PCs are getting as much support as they are with him as the leader. Now, I'm really hoping that Andrew Horwath and the NDP can pull this out. They have a fantastic progressive platform. They're going for universal dental care, universal pharmacare. They actually want to invest in unions, prop up unions, make sure labor is strong. So it's such a clear and obvious option, and such a better option than Doug Ford's PCs. But
yeah, this isn't like Hillary versus Trump. Like, this is actually like a good solution to a lot of the problems that we face. This is more who's worse. This is actually there's a positive candidate. And
you were saying it's almost like Elizabeth Warren going up against Donald Trump. Like, it's similar in that sense.
Similar in concept.
Yeah.
For
Andrew Horwath is, I would say, similar to Elizabeth Warren in, I don't know.
Like, definitely more left.
Yeah.
Just because
Canada's naturally left.
More left.
But similar in terms of her approach, in terms of her positivity and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. The election is on Thursday next week.
Please vote.
Please vote if you're in Ontario. Oh my God, please vote. Please vote.
Get your grandparents, get your whole family, make a party out of it.
And I would say wherever you are, vote NDP unless you are in Guelph. If you're in Guelph, vote Green, because even if NDP is down a seat, Greens, I imagine, would form a coalition with the NDP to form government if it came to that. So vote Green Party in Guelph, absolutely. Otherwise, NDP all the way. Okay, let's go to my last story here before I get to some questions. All right. Let's go to... So, right now there are two strong... there's a lot of strong progressive candidates, but two that really stand out to me. And Those two are Allison Hartson and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. So first, I want to play a campaign ad from each because I think these are so well done, and they're both very different, but they showcase how a progressive should run. So let me first show you the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ad, and this one's about 2 minutes long. So check it out.
Women like me aren't supposed to run for office. I wasn't born to a wealthy or powerful family. Mother from Puerto Rico, dad from the South Bronx. I was born in a place where your zip code determines your destiny. My name is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I'm an educator, an organizer, a working class New Yorker. I've worked with expectant mothers, I've waited tables and led classrooms. And going into politics wasn't in the plan. But after 20 years of the same representation, we have to ask, who has New York been changing for? Every day gets harder for working families like mine to get by. The rent gets higher, healthcare covers less, and our income stays the same. It's clear that these changes haven't been for us, and we deserve a champion. It's time to fight for a New York that working families can afford. That's why I'm running for Congress. This race is about people versus money. We've got people, they've got money. It's time we acknowledge that not all Democrats are the same. That a Democrat who takes corporate money, profits off foreclosure, doesn't live here, doesn't send his kids to our schools, doesn't drink our water or breathe our air, cannot possibly represent us. What the Bronx and Queens needs is Medicare for all, tuition-free public college, a federal jobs guarantee, and criminal justice reform. We can do it now. It doesn't take 100 years to do this. It takes political courage. A New York for the many is possible. It's time for one of us. Vote for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on June 26th.
All right. I thought that was fantastic. Now, this is how you should run as a progressive. A positive message and showing how you are different, how you don't take corporate money, and the policies that you want to achieve. And also, I mean, this ad was just so well shot. So that's also the other half of it that just makes this so well done. But let me show you now. Let me show you Allison Hartson's ad, which is very different in terms of the way it's structured, but I think is also just as equally as impressive.
I'm Allison Hartson, and I've never slept with a porn star. I've also never called anyone a China person, nor am I a Nazi. That's why the media isn't covering my campaign. I have been a public school teacher for 10 years and led a national nonprofit to end political corruption. But that doesn't raise anyone's ratings, so media would rather give billions in free advertising to clowns and actual Nazis. I'm going to fight for Medicare for all, higher wages, and college education for your kids. I'm Allison Hartson, and I approve this message because you deserve somebody who's going to represent you, not corporate donors.
And there you go. So a very different ad, but also as equally as effective as the first one, and done very differently. So what Allison Hartson hit on there is so right. You don't get coverage as a candidate unless you are already an incumbent or you are some crazy person. So I think it was either ABC, CBS, or NBC that have this big segment on all these idiots running for Congress. So like a Nazi, a pedophile, all these morons that are running. And you know what? Fine, cover that. But if you're going to cover that, you should also cover the opposite end of that. People who actually have morals, people who are running for something, people who are running against the establishment. That is also a story, but that doesn't get coverage. What gets coverage is if you're a Nazi, if you're a pedophile. Oh my, have you heard the guy who's a pedophile? Have you heard that story? Let me get your mic on.
Some guy in Virginia or something. I don't know. I think I briefly saw something about some guy who, I don't know, like I can't keep up. It seems like there's a lot. But yeah, I did hear there was another guy in Virginia, I think, or
Yeah. Yeah, there's this guy I saw something on it yesterday, but it's it's as far as you could possibly go.
Isn't he for incels?
or
He's for incest.
oh, okay.
He's pro incest.
Um,
So it's just I don't even know what the hell's going on. I don't know how this guy can run and not be arrested. It's just the shit he's talking about. It seems like he maybe did some of it before. So whatever. I'm not going to talk about that more anymore because we should focus more on progressives. So these candidates should get more attention from the media, but they are not. All right, let me go to put up my name key here. All right, let me go to some questions in the first. Let me go to Patron, and then I'll check on YouTube if there's any questions there. So I got a lot of patrons sending me questions. Let's start with the first one here. This is from, I'm just going to do first names and then initial the last name since I don't know if you guys want your last name in this. This is from Caleb SG. Do you have plans to go on other progressive shows? I started watching when you went on the Humanist Report. Maybe the Jimmy Dore Show. I know Jamal Thomas is getting a lot of awesome guests soon, and maybe you could be one of them. Yeah. I mean, if people invite me on, I will try to make it on. I feel like, so my work comes first. So if I can get my videos out, if I can do what I'm doing, and if me being on someone else's show doesn't impede the work I'm doing for my channel, I will absolutely do it. But at some point, I'm going to have to, either reschedule if it's not a good time or whatever. But I'm definitely open to being on more shows. Next question from Jean-Luc D. As a Canadian, really been enjoying the Canadian coverage. Any plans to cover some local policy changes or input on things like the CRTC request for an investment from Netflix? Feel like there's so much to talk about. However, not sure with your channel demographics how deep into Canadian politics you can go without alienating some of the audience. Yeah, so that's kind of the problem. So my channel reflects the population of the US versus Canada. So my US audience is 10 times the size of my Canadian audience, which makes sense because the population of Canada is 10 times smaller than the US. So that said, I still do about at least one Canadian video a week. At least that's the way I've been, that's the way it's been going so far. Now, that can fluctuate depending on what's happening in Canada versus what's happening in the US. So if I feel like there's more to cover in the US, then I'll cover more US topics. Or if there's a big election like there is right now, I'll do a lot more Canadian stuff. Mary has a comment. Hold up, I gotta get your mic on. We got some weird mic stuff going on here, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to say that there are issues all around the world, and I think ultimately it would be good to cover progressive issues that are international. Like, I really like that Canadian story that you did, where you were covering the guy that was it Africa?
Which one?
It was a story about the guy that he was an activist. Anyways, my point is essentially, I think you should, I don't know, my opinion is, I like it when you cover a lot of international issues.
Yeah.
And that can be related to whether it's, free speech issues in the United States or Canada, or like activism, or the Greenpeace story that you covered in France. I think like we on the left, ultimately we should look at all the issues that we struggle globally as, I hate to sound like a globalist, but there are issues that we face in Canada and the United States and Europe and Africa and Asia and other parts of the world. And we should be able to combat these issues internationally.
Yeah, I agree. But I tend to gear towards topics that interest me. So if like, there's so much news happening all the time in the world, and as one person, I have to figure out, okay, what do I want to cover? And I mean, there's a number of factors. So I have to figure out what I'm into, figure out what the audience is into, and also what is actually important and what should get some coverage, and also what other people are covering also influences me. Because if everyone's covering one topic, then I feel like that's already good. Like, that's covered, and I can go cover something else. So if you go through my channel, you won't see much Trump, and that's because, well, that's for multiple reasons. Trump makes me really angry, and I feel like it's so obvious that he's just the worst person, the worst president that you can even imagine. I don't have anything to add to that conversation. So all the Trump stories are like, oh, he's corrupt again. He's doing this. There's an investigation into him still. More people connected to him are being charged or whatever. Like, it's constant, and it tires me out. So because that's covered so much already everywhere else, including online networks and television networks, I don't feel like I need to add my voice to that. So I try to focus on more progressive issues, whether it's candidates, whether it's actual policy, whether it's things like Greenpeace, or people like you were mentioning, Mary, where there was a guy from I forget where he was, but a country in Africa, and he wasn't allowed into Canada with a visa, even though he has a kid here, and he was visiting his kid, and he's like a well-known journalist who has fought corruption. So those kinds of stories that get lost through everything else that's going on, I try to cover those stories, because if I just focus on the same story that everybody else is covering, then what's the point of watching it? You're not really going to learn anything different. So I want to offer something different that you may have not heard about before. Okay. But in relation to the CRTC request for investment, investment from Netflix, that's something I may touch on next week. It's kind of an interesting story, but I don't know. We'll see. Next comment from Jason W. 420 patrons. I guess I have 420 patrons. I'm not sure if I still do, but when he posted that, I'm at 420. If you want to become a patron, therationalnational.com/join, and you become a patron. The rest of his comments. So I recall people like Humanist Report and Secular Talk are affiliated with TYT. Would you possibly, and perhaps with our help, pitch an idea to Cenk to have a Canadian arm of the TYT network, especially since it feels like New York and LA are their main locations? I'm never going to say never. The thing right now, I enjoy what I'm doing. So I enjoy being independent. I enjoy not having to answer to anybody. I enjoy being able to pick the stories I want to pick. So let's say we went down the path of me being the Canadian arm of TYT. Would that mean I'm doing all Canadian stories? Because I don't want to do that. I want to be able to do American stories or world news or environmental news or whatever. So if I can remain autonomous and pick the stories I want to pick, then I'm open to any potential partnership. At the same time, I want to be able to have full control over my channel and all my content. Next question from Jack A. I like your outsider view of the U.S. while still concentrating, for the most part, on the U.S. I particularly like hearing details and statistics about the differences between Canada and the U.S. systems and laws. I see this as your unique selling point, in that you can point out, as you did just a couple days ago, the difference between political coverage on television. Please keep doing this, and make sure to use specific numbers and stats so that things you point out are not just anecdotal statements that can be discounted. Keep up the good work. Thank you. And yeah, I'll bring in stats and that sort of thing when I have them. When it comes to comparing, for example, Canadian media and how we cover issues versus how U.S. covers topics, that requires a team of researchers. I mean, you need people analyzing Canadian news, counting the minutes of how much time is dedicated to certain topics versus others, and then compare that to the U.S. numbers. I can't. I'm not a researcher. I don't do that. So if that research is available, I will absolutely use it. But if it's not available, I have to simply use anecdotes because I don't have anything else. Next question from Robert M. Hello, David. What do you think are the chances that Trump will start a war with either Iran or North Korea before the November midterms in an effort to improve the GOP's chances? Our doorbell just went off. Don't even get it. Close the door. So I don't see this happening. I don't see Trump. Let me put this another way. Anything is possible, but I don't see him starting a war simply for the midterms because he doesn't care enough about the midterms. Now, a war for himself in 2020? Yeah, sure, maybe. But, sorry. We're good. But he said in a recent campaign rally about, oh yeah, the midterms are important. At least that's what they tell me to say. Trump doesn't give a shit. Trump doesn't care about any of this. I sort of came to this realization yesterday. Trump is playing games. He's fucking shit up. So he was caught. I forget if he was caught on mic or there's a story around this where he told somebody that he lied to Trudeau about there being a trade deficit simply because Trudeau said that there was a trade surplus. He's like, no, there's a trade deficit. So Trump just fucks around. He doesn't care. Now, I don't. So when it comes to his ego and that sort of thing, starting a war is more likely for maybe 2020. But for the midterms, I don't see it. Let me see if there's any chats on YouTube before I get to well, no super chats. So back to Patron. Glenn M. Would you consider running for political office again? And if so, would it be provincial or federal? Also, would you consider running for the NDP, given that our deeply flawed electoral system has almost completely shut out the Green Party? Let me think about this. So, would I run for office again? Maybe. But right now, I enjoy this. I enjoy doing YouTube. I enjoy covering the news. It's something different every day. When I was a candidate for the 3 months that our elections last for, it's a hard friggin' job, and it's not for everybody. You have to really be into all of these different issues and really be into answering your phone every 2 minutes. I hate talking on the phone. Like, there's so many weird little things that you don't think about when you're running as a candidate that you are essentially somebody else's slave. Like, you are a slave to the campaign. You have to always be doing something, always be out. You're always on someone else's schedule. And that's not me. I like to be in control of what I'm doing. So while I fully support progressive candidates, whether they're in the NDP or in Green Party, when it comes to me actually running, it's something I'd have to think more about. I'd have to be in a place in my life where it makes more sense. It doesn't make sense now, and I don't think it makes sense for the next several years at least. But if I ran, it would likely be the NDP, unless the Green Party makes more strides in electoral politics here. But the reason why it would be the NDP is because I would want to win. So the Green Party, unfortunately, they're strong in BC. They're gaining some ground there. They might have one seat in provincially in Ontario this election, but otherwise, there's not much hope. So if I ran as Green Party, it would be in a riding that there is actually a potential for the Green Party to win. But otherwise, I think NDP makes a lot more sense. Two more patron questions. Nathan G. What happened to your Steemit account? It looks like you created it and haven't gone back, and you haven't mentioned it again since. Yeah, I don't have time. So Steemit is just another platform to post things on. I didn't see the purpose to it. So as long as YouTube still exists, it's going to be my main platform, and I'm going to link to it. So even on Facebook, where you'd think there'd be a larger audience, there isn't that big of an audience for me yet. So sometimes, even though I do upload my videos to Facebook, it's this extra step that really could just be taken out if I just post the link to the YouTube video on Facebook. So because I am, researching, shooting, editing these videos, there's not much time to post on all these different platforms. So Steemit is not a priority for me unless YouTube kind of goes away. But right now, everything's good, even though they kind of screw me on the money aspect. Question from actually, wait, no, there is a few more patron questions. Question from Norma P. Hi, David. I'm curious about your take on Prime Minister Trudeau's response to the tariffs imposed by the U.S. government against Canada. Funny you should ask, because I got a couple. I have some stuff prepped here. Let me just get a drink of water because holy shit, it's hot in here. Okay, so Trudeau and tariffs. Yes. So he responded to that. Let me pull up the Star article here. Canada to hit U.S. with retaliatory tariffs in response to Trump's steel tariffs. Trump's move will harm Canadian companies and further complicate the talks over the future of continental trade. The tit-for-tat exchange of tariffs is likely to raise prices on a variety of consumer goods popular with both Canadians and Americans. Trump is imposing 25% steel tariffs and 10% aluminum tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, all of which he had previously exempted. Despite the official national security rationale, Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross told reporters that Trump actually acted against Canada because NAFTA talks are taking longer than we had hoped. Trudeau responded with a list of tariffs to take effect July 1st on more than 100 U.S. products. The list includes not only industrial steel and aluminum items, but consumer products, from ketchup to dishwasher detergent, to boats, to toilet paper, to playing cards, to insecticide, to washing machines. All right, so I've been a big critic of Trudeau. I think his move here is the only move you could possibly do. He had to strike back with his own tariffs. And yeah, so, I mean, this is actually showing that Trudeau isn't completely incompetent. Just when it comes to this issue, I think he's doing the right thing. I can't imagine him having to do anything more. I think he's doing what he should do. And just this whole this shows you how out of it Trump is. This is really benefiting nobody. People in all these countries are being hurt because of this, including people in the U.S. Now, will this lead to a better NAFTA deal? It hasn't so far, so I doubt it. But I'm really curious how this is all going to end. How are these tariffs going to end? At one point, like, is this going to continue on for the next several years until Trump's out of office? Or is Congress going to somehow step in? Like, what is the ultimate goal here? Because Trump thinks the goal is about negotiating NAFTA, but in NAFTA, so what's not mentioned in this piece is that the starting point for the talks for NAFTA from Mike Pence telling Trudeau was that they want a sunset clause in the deal after 5 years, which defeats the purpose of a trade deal because it leads to uncertainty around how long will that trade deal actually last. So if you have a sunset clause, then why even have the deal? So the whole point of NAFTA is that there is this, it's clear that free trade is happening and now we can build around that. We can organize around that. But if you have a sunset clause in the deal, then it creates all this uncertainty from the industries that are involved in free trade, that it prevents them from really having a solid ground to stand on. So I don't really know what Trump's goal is. He's going to have to back off of this sunset clause to actually have a better NAFTA deal. If he would prioritize unions and labor, that'd be great, but that's not what he's doing. So I'm not exactly sure what Trump's objective is. All right, a couple more questions on Patron, and then I'll see if I can take some. There's one super chat. Actually, let's see if there's a question here. If I can get to it, or is it just money? Mary, can you check if the super chat if there's a question? No. Oh, okay. Well then, thank you, Gran, for the super chat. Okay, so question from Aaron S. Hi, David. I'd love to know how you feel the NDP and Green Party platforms for the Ontario general election compare, and who you think overall has the better one. And would you say the Green Party is generally to the right or to the left of the NDP? For what it's worth, Wikipedia more often than not says the party is in the center. And what are your thoughts on Andrea Horwath? She seemed a bit scripted and robotic in some of her answers during the debates. Thanks and greetings from Germany. So I haven't compared them directly, but Green Party, I find it weird that Wikipedia, is that what he said? Wikipedia saying it's more to the center. Green Party is generally the most left party. Now, that could just be on environmental issues, but when I ran as a Green Party candidate federally, the Green Party definitely had the more progressive platform. Now, I would say Mike Schreiner, out of all the leaders, might be the best leader in terms of his ability to not bullshit people. So around energy especially, so around hydro, he was saying that we just have to let hydro rates go up because that's the way it is, and we should be moving towards sustainable energies and get away from our higher hydro bills and actually question how much energy we use. So because he is in the Green Party, he wants people to use less energy. So higher hydro bills for him isn't a big deal because he doesn't want people to use as much energy as they're currently using. So I get that position. At the same time, it's not one that people are going to vote for outside of Guelph. But regardless of that, the Green Party is just, because people have this built-in assumption that they are simply the environmental party, it works against them. It works against their ability to really to form these sorts of movements outside of places like BC or in Guelph where they're very progressive. So I don't know. When it comes to Andrea Horwath as a leader, I agree she is sort of robotic, but all these politicians are. This is one area where I feel like the U.S. in a way actually has a bit of an edge. So I feel like there, at least some of the politicians running for Congress now, the progressives, aren't scripted. They come off as real people because they are real people. But here, our politicians are still very scripted. So it's one of those things where culturally you sort of had to get away from that. And it appeared to be one of the reasons why people wanted to or liked Doug Ford. But Doug Ford, I think, is very robotic. To me, he doesn't come off as a normal guy, a guy you want to have a beer with. I mean, Trump, I would say, is a lot more loose than Doug Ford is, especially in the last debate. So if you watched my coverage of the last debate, Doug Ford is very robotic, very scripted, very politician-like. So I don't see the appeal in that sense of Doug Ford, even though he's supposed to be this, that sort of guy. But yeah, I mean, you sort of have to compare what you have, right? So we have Kathleen Wynne, Andrea Horwath, and Doug Ford. Out of those leaders, I think it's clear that, Wynne is out of it anyways, so there's no point in voting for the Liberals. And Andrea Horwath is the only way to defeat Doug Ford. And Andrea Horwath, on top of being the only way to defeat Doug Ford, also has the strongest platform, I think, out of all three of the major candidates. So I think it's clear to vote for NDP. Last question on Patron here from Joseph M. Hey, David, how left ideologically would you consider yourself? Also, do you think Jagmeet Singh is a good enough leader to lead the NDP to a strong showing in the federal elections come 2019? This would likely mean increasing the number of NDP seats from 65 to 70. Thanks and love the show. Yeah. So for the first question, I wouldn't say I'm a socialist, but I would say I'm a social democrat or democratic socialist, depending on how you view those terms. I still think capitalism has a place in society, but I think we really need to protect unions, protect labor, have more of the benefits going to the labor force and not all going to the top. So we can still restructure our society while still having a capitalist system in place, but that not being the main driver. So you still need an underpinning of healthcare, an underpinning of obviously infrastructure, roads, bridges, schools. So you can do all that. You can invest in all those things and still have, capitalism in terms of products and competition in that sense. So I do think capitalism has a place, especially when it comes to innovation in technology or even just clothing. Like, you need that sort of system in place to have these items that we have been so used to acquiring. Now, I don't think we need as much junk as we currently have, but we can move towards a system where we are happy because we have healthcare, and we are happy because our police forces actually work for us and work with us, and they are part of the community. So there's a way to have this system that is still within this society and isn't drastically changing everything. So that's what I feel about that. In terms of Jagmeet Singh as a good enough leader, I think Jagmeet Singh is a good leader. Now, he wasn't my first choice when it came to the leader of the NDP, but I think he's growing. He's getting better, especially when he actually after he won leadership, he I think got a lot better on a lot of issues. He moved away from all the social issues, not moved away from it, but focused less on just the social or the identity politics aspect of the social issues, and moved towards more on economic issues. Got more progressive on issues like Israel-Palestine, where he came out and condemned the actions that Israel did against the Palestinians. So Jagmeet Singh is great, and I think he's learning, he's getting better, and I think he will have a strong showing in 2019, especially because I am not voting for Trudeau. So if I hadn't ran in the last election and voted for myself, I likely would have voted for Trudeau because I wanted to get Harper out. But now that we see Trudeau's broken promises, especially on the environment and like when it comes to oil subsidies, he was going to end all oil subsidies. Oh, and now he just bought a fucking oil pipeline. So just absolutely ridiculous. And especially, this one is even, I would say, more important for me, electoral reform. So he was supposed to change our electoral system so that it's not first past the post and actually is a system that represents us, and move to a sort of some form of ranked choice voting and a system that is proportional representation. So it actually represents the country. But as it stands, he broke that promise, and he's not going to change the system at all. He hasn't gone back to that since he has come out and saying that he's not going to change that. So this is the problem. When you have a party that says they're going to change how the electoral system works and then they win, they realize, oh, actually, we can win with this system. We can actually form a majority government in the current system. Why would we change it? And that's what happened. So I think it's dumb, because I think if we did change the system, Liberals would still be getting a lot of progressive support. But because they didn't do anything to that, I think they're going to lose a lot of progressives. And I mean, that's just one issue. So the environment and other issues as well, where Trudeau is just, he's also, I'm not sure if this is new since he became prime minister, but I feel like he's a lot more phony now than he was when he was running. When he was running, I don't remember thinking every time he spoke in public, I never clued into how phony he was in terms of the way he speaks, how proper he is, how soft spoken he is. It's all a facade. And I think because I've clued into his broken promises, it's made me see through that facade. So it's possible he was always like that, but I do feel like he's a little more phony now than he was when he initially won. But I don't know. All right, let's take some more questions here. So we got a question on Super Chat. Would you be open to a guest on a conservative YouTube channel? Did 1791L reached out to you via Twitter to discuss monk debate. So I think I saw a bit of that online. I'm not open to debating anybody who doesn't think white privilege is real. If you don't have morals, if you can't see with your own fucking eyes, I'm not debating you. So, I mean, I can't debate morality. If you can't recognize that cops bother black people to a higher extent than they bother white people, then how am I supposed to make any progress here? We have I come from the place of facts. There are studies. There's reality of how certain marginalized groups are treated, and then there's fantasy land where some white people think that we're all treated the same. We're not. Now, there's different forms of privilege. So there's class privilege. So class privilege is you are born into a wealthy family and you have all those benefits, and you don't see outside yourself in terms of the benefits that you've been given because of that. So, for example, Doug Ford has class privilege. He was born into a family where his dad owned a business, so he inherited his business from his dad. His dad was an MPP, so he was born into this life with all these connections already built in. That's class privilege. Now, white privilege is when I'm driving down the road and there's a cop behind me. Yeah, for a second I'm like, oh, am I going the right speed limit? Whatever. There's that. But if you're a black person, especially in America, and there's a cop behind you, you're thinking about your life. You're thinking about, if you're stopped, am I going to get shot? I don't think about that if a cop stops me. So all white privilege is the benefit. You get the benefit of the doubt as a white person. So if you can't get that basic concept, I have nothing to discuss with you about. I mean, what are we going to talk about? So Jordan Peterson in that debate, he showed his complete lack of ability to empathize with anybody else who isn't him. And he does that constantly. And it's obvious. I mean, Peterson was empathizing with the incel that killed those people in Toronto with his truck.
No, he wasn't.
He was, sorry, Mary. 1 sec. Mike.
He wasn't empathizing. He was advocating for enforced monogamy. Like, that's taking that to another level.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's like another level of empathizing.
Yeah, it was agreeing and saying, no, this is the kind of policy that we should, advocate for because these people can't get laid. Like, it wasn't just simply he was for it. Like, he came out with a ridiculous response to that. Like, how can you say that enforced monogamy is the response to people killing people on the street? Like, that's
so senseless.
And then he'll come out and say, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way." Like, this is the shit. Jordan Peterson talks in such grandiose and vague ways that if you pin him down on what he's actually saying, and he'll simply say, "Oh no, I didn't mean it that way. I meant it this way." Like, it's this squirrely way of talking where you don't actually have a position. You talk vaguely enough where people hear what they want to hear in terms of dog whistles to certain things. And then when you call him out on it, he'll say, "No, I didn't mean that." But even apart from that, why is the conversation with him always wondering how we can help the poor white people, or not the poor white people, but the poor white people in the sense of the emotionally poor white people, the people who are, who are incels, who are mentally insufficient in certain ways, who I would say, yes, there are ways that we can discuss that and maybe help that. But when does he ever talk about the marginalized communities who can't get jobs because they see a black name on a resume and they don't get called, or black people that get shot, unarmed black people that get shot when white people get away with the same thing? So there's this constant. If you want to talk about helping incels or white people who have emotional problems, fine. But also recognize that there are other issues as well going on. Recognize that there are certain benefits that white people have simply because of how they look. But Peterson, for whatever reason, is not able to clue into this. And I can't debate somebody who doesn't have basic morals or empathy, who isn't able to see or experience in terms of empathizing with people who don't look like them. But there you go. Anything else?
You covered it.
All right. Let me just briefly look through YouTube here if there's anything else I want to pick up on. As I'm one guy, I got to.
There's a lot of hate.
There's a lot of hate on your promoting the NDP. It just seems that you're getting a lot of people responding to that.
In terms of what? NDP over Greens or NDP over PC?
Yeah, I guess just your promoting of the NDP party. So,
like what?
I've just seen a few comments here and there, but
if they have any specific issues, that's fine.
Like, I think specifically provincially, NDP hasn't done well in certain provinces when it comes to pipelines, for sure. But when we have to...
That's Alberta. Like, that's...
Yeah, when we have to talk about Ontario and
that's
our
a fundamental
own
misunderstanding.
Yeah. And the difference between Andrew Horwath versus the Liberals versus Doug Ford, the only people that actually get any kind of coverage...
Yeah. Well,
there's a real clear solution here. That's just my opinion, but...
Yeah, but so yes, you have an NDP government in Alberta, which is, pro oil because they have a huge oil industry there. But in terms of, BC also has an NDP government, and they're against the pipeline. So it shows you how two parties can be on the opposite side of the same issue. So it really comes down to, what is the NDP doing in your area, in your province? So nationally, I think it's too early to really compare the parties yet, since, the NDP aren't running on a platform yet because the election isn't happening. But in terms of provincially, we can take a look at and say, okay, I like what the NDP are doing in BC. I like some of what they're doing in Alberta, but I don't like what they're doing in terms of the environment and the oil industry. And I like Andrea Horwath in Ontario and what they're doing here.
So this is an example of a comment I've heard from other from other Democratic Socialists, that they think NDP has gone downhill ideologically since Jack Layton. That's an example of a comment. David, the NDP does not help stop the problems we have.
I think in terms of
who's paying for these commenters?
But I'm just no. But I'm just saying, like, in terms of this,
we're not talking like
in terms of the NDP, like they have a proposition to implement, pharmaceutical care for everyone, like dental care for everyone. Like they're incremental steps, but they're definitely far more left than what the Liberals want to do.
Yeah, I think it's obvious. Here's the reality. Ontario is going to be PC or NDP. So pick one.
And you have a solution.
Like, you have a party that is I would say more left than any other party that we've ever had in the history of Ontario.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, I guess there was Bob Rae in the NDP, but
he wasn't very left.
Show me a platform that has been more left, that had an opportunity to win. And I think we need to, on the left, think about how we can actually get these people into power. And I think that's the most important thing, especially in this election.
I completely agree. I I did not expect any NDP hate at all. I haven't seen any of that on my my other YouTube videos except from conservatives. Let me see if there's anything else. So forgive me as I'm reading through YouTube chat. No idea. All right, I don't know. It's too hard to pin stuff down. All right. I don't want to sit in silence for the next 3 hours. Okay. Is there anything that you think I should touch on, Mary?
That was just the general trend I was seeing on the comments here, but
I'm just gonna doing a million things at once. So I'm gonna check to make sure I got all the comments from Patreon, since I didn't check it the most recently. Yeah, I did. Okay, cool. All right, I think that's it. Unless we got more, I got nothing else to bring up here. No, we're good. All right, thanks everybody for watching. Maybe I'll do more of these. This is fun. I like doing this. This is good. That's it. All right, later. Bye.
Stay shining. My goals stay shining. I know I'm the nicest. I keep getting reminded. Keep getting reminded. Say I'm conceited, and here's the reason I am. My goals stay shining. I ain't lying. YDCP. Hey, you see that?